Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Coach's Corner. Today, we are in the corner of Georgia Gwinnett head coach and the Canes travel coach, Coach Sheets. What's happening, brother?
Not much. How are you doing?
I am doing well. So aside from meeting me this summer and spending time with me, what was the most enjoyable part of coaching travel baseball?
I mean, if that is one, it's also 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then there's everything else that comes with it. No, I really did. I enjoyed our time at Lake Point, and I'm glad we're throwing a nod to it in your background there. I'll tell you what, man, a summer spent inside the travel space, a place I had really only recruited from, certainly never coached within, and to do that was an education in of itself. It was really neat to, in essence, take that COVID era, quarantine feeling and go, man, I'm getting out of this and I'm going to go coach. I'm going to go be around players, and then to be around an organization like the Canes was really neat. So all positive, man, and nothing, no regrets.
So that's the reason that we got you on here today. I'll give you the college plug here at the end. But,
sure, of course.
But we got enough of that. I already got you twice, I think, getting to plug that. Yeah. So the whole reason I got you on here today was because you are a college baseball coach and have been a college baseball coach. And I believe this was the first time, or at least the first time in a long time, that you joined that world that you typically are just recruiting out of. So what was the biggest realization to you this summer about travel baseball that was completely unknown to you beforehand?
So I'll go on both sides of the fence here. So as a college coach, as a coach of an NAIA program, we still need to be involved in that travel space. We still recruit out of there. We still need those networks and those relationships. And the one thing that hit me, which led into why I chose to do this with the Canes 16U National, is I don't know if it was going to be a wise investment of my time. And Josh, as you know, we got small kids. I want to be at home with my children, but also know in the summer I've got to go recruit. I got to be at these tournaments, these events. And I just did not feel like it was going to be a wise use of my time to set up behind home plate and, track down a bunch of velos and get a bunch of 90 times and do that sort of thing when the 21 class that we're in front of right now, seniors, the 22s, 23s, that's just not going to be our bread and butter here at Georgia Gwinnett. We're going to spend more time in the transfer world. So let's cut to the chase and get to probably some of the best 16-year-olds in the country, knowing, we all know, that not all of them are going to stick at where they've committed to. Now, all these guys are committed to Power 5 schools. That doesn't mean they're going to be there for 4 years. So there's a chance they get around Uncle Sheets that hopefully if it's a positive experience, they say, hey, man, maybe I should go play at Georgia Gwinnett. So that was a piece of that puzzle. From the coaching end and being in the dugout, again, with the Canes team, I commend Jeff Petty for the offer, Brian Hucks and Corey Welch for letting me join their staff. And I told you this at Lake Point, I learned so much from not only the mind of a 16-year-old, really, really talented player, but the world that is around them, which I had no concept of. And what I mean by that, and I'm sure we'll talk about, is these kids are all talented. And again, all Power 5 committed. They are going to play a random game at, East Cobb, at Lake Point, wherever. When they get done, Josh, they are going to have 3, 4, 5, 10 advisors walk with them and their family to their car, all pitching, you should join us. And I never understood the underbelly of all that world where, in terms of filling out our roster, a lot of it is advisor driven. In terms of these higher end organizations, it's advisor driven, which again has only its effect on the Power 5 schools in essence. I talked with a bunch of Power 5 head coaches and assistant coaches, and they all brought up it's so laughable that you're seeing that for the first time when that has been our world for so long. Now, again, flashback 10 years ago when I'm at the University of Kentucky, that wasn't a thing. That wasn't as big a thing, where now that really runs the shop. And you just got to be aware of it and address it accordingly.
To clarify, you're talking about, again, the Canes are well-known, excellent organization, top of the line talent. When you say advisors are following them out, what you're talking about is pro agents, correct?
These are guys that are wanting to befriend these players and their families to where as they move forward and they close in on whether it's being a high school draft or potentially a junior draft at the school they go to, that they choose them as their advisor ultimately to become their agent. That player then makes major, that whole system, that whole relationship-driven entity really thrives inside of this upper-level travel space. And I just, again, man, call me dumb. I'm known from Kentucky, and I barely got on here. But, like, it's just different. That to me wasn't part of the lexicon or understanding of the travel space I grew up in. But especially from the recruiting piece, I don't care who your advisor is. Same way with some of our guys. We just had a player sign with the Astros. I don't care who you choose as an advisor. I'm going to coach you, the person. So I don't get into that space because I don't need to spend time there. This is completely driven on that end, which is not a bad thing because there are great people out there doing it for the right reasons, and they do have best intentions for those guys. But it's just like any other business, man. It plays a larger role than maybe I assumed.
Okay, so the questions today, in fairness and just so that everybody knows, are not necessarily about the Canes. When I ask you about your experience out there, I don't want anybody to take offense one way or the other. Just talking about the experience as a whole, looking at it from outside the Canes organization, because again, the Canes, Elite Squad, the Dirtbags, some of these programs are on a totally different level. I mean, they are the 1%ers, I guess you could say.
Sure.
Of the travel world. Looking at, the good teams, the mainstream teams, what's something you looked at about them and maybe realized that you didn't, think of before?
I think one in particular is I had this feeling a lot. Man, there's a lot of really good players out here. So as much as I liked our team, and as I was talking with you at Lake Point, I think we've got what's ranked as the top power hitter left-handed swing in the country. I think we've got one of the best shortstops in the country, got a number of arms that are really good. But then we go play, as you mentioned, you go play the East Cobbs, you go play the Team Elite, you go play the Dirtbags, you go play these upper-end programs, and you realize, oh, no, they've got dudes too. And it gave me a greater appreciation maybe nationally of how many really talented youth players there are, which if I think in other coaching circle terms, how many issues may be presented when you're trying to recruit for Team USA and you're trying to whittle that group down to this top 25 16-year-olds in the country one day for, whether it's the 18U national team. That's going to be incredibly difficult because there are a number of really good players. That was number one. Number two, it's one thing I think for me as a college coach to sit in the stands and recruit and watch Team Elite play East Cobb. All right. Now, if I'm just recruiting here in Georgia, they're made up of primarily Georgia kids with some others sprinkled in. And I can sit back there and recruit that all day long. It's a much different animal when I'm in the dugout and I'm invested in the game and I'm starting to this really good player, but we've exposed something in his swing. We know how to pitch him. His body language in the box, I'm probably more tuned in to who he is from a maturity standpoint than I would if I were just recruiting. I know that seems counterintuitive, but imagine being invested in the game of getting this guy out. I'm very in tune with where he's at, what he's dealing with, how he reacted to that pitch, how he reacted to an umpire call. This pitch would be perfect to set him up for this pitch on an out. As I told you, I spent all my time on the base running end for our team. So watching 16-year-old high school pitchers and noticing that there's really no concept of attacking the running game because they want to hit 92. So their job is to throw it really hard. So a scout back there raises his gun and takes a couple notes. And so that's how we were able to take advantage of some of those guys. And that was eye-opening for me because I've recruited high school, never coached high school, and I got two high school coaches in the dugout with me, and I'm talking with them about, man, this is the nod for any high school coach in the country. You want to be a really good base running team? You can do it because here's the best of the best. And maybe it's the arena, but they're not paying attention to what we're doing at first base. They're in literally a stuck routine with looks at second base. We can take advantage of this all day long. And that opened my eyes a little bit to, even on the higher level kid, there's still so much work that we can get done as coaches. It kind of charged me up to come back with our guys and be a little more aware of some of those dynamics that we needed to teach. If that makes sense.
You mentioned that you coach base running. I always watch some, and I know it's difficult for teams to be able to actually practice and put all this stuff together.
Right.
But if teams could put together some plays, base running wise, maybe some first and thirds or some good pickoff plays, they would go out and it would make such a huge difference on the travel circuit over the summer, and give them such an advantage. Anyway, to get past the base running stuff, is travel baseball fair? And what I mean by that is we know how big college baseball and how many opportunities are out there for kids. But when you're going up against, I mean, I saw a picture for you guys one night that was like 92 with a hammer. That kid that's maybe a lower end D2 player or a D3 player, is he getting a fair shot to like do something good? Or I mean, I guess he can get a hit, right?
Sure.
But aren't we setting some of these kids up for not looking good? Like sometimes I think, should we separate those 1% teams from the rest of the group? Do you get what I mean by that? Does that make any sense?
No, I do. So, and I know where you're going with that. I would say that they're already split to begin with. The only time they really cross paths would be if you're in the same pool at a huge tournament like the WWBA. Majority of the tournaments we went to, the USA championships and Cary, we did play the WWBA, won the WWBA. Let me get that in there. Wilson Premier, we won the Wilson Premier, which again was top teams. We played at another kind of open tournaments. We played some odds and ends, but generally, that's, as you mentioned, the top 1%, that's what we'll drop them under, is they're really playing in tournaments that are going to pit them against the other 1%ers. Which again, that's not right, wrong, or indifferent. That's just, look, these teams are equipped differently. They're funded differently. Again, we're talking about the other side of this. The talent level may be a little bit different. And generally they fall into tournaments together. So, we played the Tri-State Arsenal 4 different times. We played the Dirtbags 2 or 3 different times. We played Team Elite 2 or 3 different times. When you're catching them in these tournaments, back to the fairness piece of it, our game's not fair. So like, I don't necessarily, and if you and I went back to our travel days of quote unquote local or travel baseball when it first started, we faced some really good dudes. And not that I was prepared for those moments, but man, you get educated. You get educated that, we had a really good player in our hometown that ended up being the 6th overall pick. And when he was a junior, I was a sophomore. That ain't fair, because he's a junior throwing 94 to 95, and I'm a sophomore that was literally cracking the lineup for JV. That's 2 different worlds, but that's the nature of the beast. But I'll say this, man, we got knocked off a couple times by some teams that I think our group looked across the way and went, never even heard of you guys, until they beat you 6-5. Now you know who they are, because right. I think it's that opportunity for some of those, maybe lower tier, mid-tier type travel organizations to step up and, play the Canes. That's a big deal for them, to play the Dirtbags, to play East Cobb. Like, that's a chance to kind of measure yourself against the best. Well, that's no different than what you and I do for a living, Josh. It's as a college coach, I want to play against the best so I can measure myself. Then I know when I go home, I know what I have to work on. So I think that's just the nature of the beast, but I think the ones that embrace it, I think they get the most out of it for sure.
Okay. Is travel baseball worth it for the mainstream player? Or are they better off not playing these Power 5 commits and going to camps and showcases and things like that? That's a question that comes up a lot.
100% it does. And there's arguments for both sides of that, for sure. Travel baseball is where the coaches are at. That's where we're recruiting, especially in the summer. Not that there aren't coaches that go out in the spring. Certainly we do. I know others do as well. We'll find opportunities to our teams practicing. I'll go watch a high school game. We love the high school coach. I'm going to be at the forefront of this. I had this conversation literally this morning at 7:30 with another college coach. I'd rather talk to a high school coach, because that guy knows who this player is at his locker and how he treats his girlfriend and who his family, what they're about, as opposed to at times a transactional relationship where we've paid you to play travel baseball, and now, of course, you'll speak well. I also think when it comes to that other player that we're talking about, you still need to think about going to some camps and going to some of those showcase events. You can't argue whether it's Prep Baseball Report or Complete Showcase or whoever these other groups are. You can't argue that there's coaches there as well. And that's a different arena and it's a different environment. And as you and I've talked about specific players, sometimes that skill set shows up better at a showcase versus a game. And then sometimes the skill set shows up better in the game than it will in the showcase. You know, you've got the kid that has the measurables. He can run a 6.5. He can throw 90 across the infield. He can take a good round of BP. He is more showcase driven. And there's coaches that are, again, making a living signing guys out of showcases. It's great. No right, wrong, or indifferent on that. Then you've got guys that don't put up the measurables. They run a 7.0. They may not take a great round of BP. They're more game driven or more rhythm driven. And they don't throw 90 across the infield. But I tell you what, you don't want to hit a ground ball to them because you're out. There's that piece of it as well. So I think you've got to manage both. And I'll never walk away from this because I think it's the same way here at GGC, Josh, as it is at other programs. If you really want to come here, you should probably come to our camp. And that's not to help me pay the 8 assistant coaches that we've got. I definitely have to worry about that. It is really about all 8 of us are watching these guys work out, and we go, there's something about that kid. And you're on our campus, and you're in front of our coaching staff. And it's the same way for kids that want to go to some of these other schools. You should be able to go to that camp, work out, and walk right up to the head coach and say, you saw me. I was here today. What do you think? Because as you well know, this is your world. These kids and their families just want an answer. Are you interested? Is it yes or no? If it's no, we'll move on. If it's yes, then how big of a yes is it? I think there's a place for both those arenas. If that makes sense.
And I want an answer from you. Okay, I am a high academic D3 kid, Northeast, Midwest, whatever. And Coach Sheets, I don't have enough money to play travel ball, go to Fort Myers, go to Atlanta, go to this, go to that, and go to showcases. I have to pick one world or the other. How do I figure that out?
Don't choose any of them and go hang out with Josh Rudd and have him make a video for you and be your, in essence, your scout that is pushing you in that social media world. Because, by the way, we're still recruiting a lot off this thing and a lot off of Flat Ground and a lot of, again, the work that you do. I think it comes back to, you know your own checking account. Just like I know ours, I wouldn't try to spend money out of yours, just like you couldn't for mine. If you know your limitations of your family, then take that money and invest it wisely. All right. If you notice that stock is falling in one, I wouldn't invest there. I'd go this route. I'm telling you that this has changed everything. And what Flat Ground and Rob has done has changed everything. And the work that you've done has changed everything. So if I only have limited funds, then I'm going to go to someone that, again, this isn't a blow smoke moment. You and I have talked at length about this. I'm going to go to someone that's got a track record of getting people signed. That's where you fall. I'm going to go somewhere where all the coaches are following. That's Flat Ground app. I'm going to put together a nice 1-minute, 2-minute, 3-minute video. I'm going to post that on social media. I'm going to let that live because that's where coaches are as well. So they may not be at your showcase. They may not even be at the travel ball game, but I promise you they're on Twitter. And so you can get to them by being strategically, focused on how you're going to invest your time, how you're going to invest your monies. So I think there's a third option there is just go the social media route and let folks see who you are on a video basis.
This is a great time for me to plug my social media webinar for anybody
Sure.
who didn't see it and would like to email me for access to that. I say a lot if there's people out here looking for advice. I say a lot to figure out where are the coaches going that you line up with. Don't make your decisions based off of just randomly going out there. Where's Coach Sheets going to be? Where's this school going to be? Because let's just take high academic schools in the Northeast. A lot of times they are doing showcase events. So hit up an I-95 Metro camp or a show ball event or a head first event up there. That's your better route. But you got to look at who are you talking to, who are you targeting, who realistically will recruit you, and figure out where they're going to be and go there. Is the question. Okay, so some things. Kids don't care about the team in travel ball. They only care about themselves. Is that true or false based on your experience this summer? Because that's something that a lot of people say.
Depends on what organization you're playing with. So,
again, in fairness, I'm not talking about the Canes. I'm talking about
no.
everything you saw this summer.
I saw all sides of it. I hate to be fence sitter throughout this whole interview, but
that's exactly
really
what you are.
I'm independent for a reason. I don't claim one side of the political sphere for a reason. But I saw both sides of that. So I saw, again, relative to the guys I was around, it meant a lot to wear black and gold. It meant a lot to play for the Canes. That was a big deal. We like to win. They know why they're there. That kind of cures that. But the other piece, yeah, I mean, I watched, I'll tell you this, and I'll expose, we lost a tournament, not a major tournament. We lost kind of a knockaround tournament, and there wasn't, obviously, for 30 seconds after that last game, there wasn't a thought of, oh man, we just lost in the tournament. And I had to get in my car and drive, 4 hours home. And I had a long talk with myself, like, man, is this where you really want to be coaching? Because that's not how I'm engineered. That doesn't work for me. If we're going to play, let's win. And I think you just got to understand, and this is talking to myself here, I had to really understand what is the investment on their end. Like, really, it's not for you or I. Playing for Franklin County High School meant the world to me, but also grew up watching older teams play and what it meant to wear navy and gold. And that was a huge deal. So the time you get there, that high school experience meant everything. The travel team that we played, quote unquote travel team that I played on growing up, that was, again, an establishment that as you grew up and you turned 16, you then had the chance to try out and play for it. And by the way, it was all your high school teammates and a crosstown rival teammates and the downtown school, and you all came together and you represent your city. You don't have that anymore. So I think the environment that's being created within it, Josh, goes to that other side. If they're not looking out for themselves, then who else is looking out for them? So you almost got to know, hey, I'm going to play for this team because, oh, by the way, there's a lot of talented kids around me. And I know that because a scout or a college coach sees them on the schedule, they're going to come watch us play. Then I've got to use this for what it is, man. This is my chance to showcase. This is my chance to be in front of these folks. And it's not, ask a college coach what, I don't mean this, ask a college coach what Team Elite's record was all summer. But I name the 5 best players on Team Elite, and I bet they can. So right. I think it's just recognition of what it is, man. This is what it is. This is the hand I've been dealt. Then I'm going to use it accordingly. So I think there's 2 sides of that puzzle. But you know this, man, because you've watched enough of this. Elite squad, or again, I go back to East Cobbs or USA Elite. When you watch them play and they have a little fever under them and they're working to win that game, I think you lock in a little bit differently as a recruiter and as a coach. You lock in and go, oh, there's something different going on here. So I just think I would always kind of shade towards that. We were at our best from a Canes perspective. We were at our best when we were really competing to win that game or win that tournament. And I think otherwise we were just a really good group of players that were out on the field. And I think that can be viewed differently.
It was really encouraging. It was awesome to watch some of the teams and the energy these kids had. In fact, I think it was one of your games, or it was a Canes game, where there was the kids stole home or something, and the whole dugout. I mean, these kids were pumped up, and I don't know if it's because they loved the game or because they hadn't been let out of their house for months. I mean, maybe a combination of both. But I was really surprised at the energy a lot of these programs brought this summer. And I think, for you could see the kids that really give a shit, and are real competitors when they know that there ain't nobody out here. At some events, my parents weren't even allowed to be in the stands, and yet they're competing. And I think if a coach can say this kid was competing all summer when nobody was around, you found something there. Purpose of summer ball is lost on coaches. They are trying to win, and they are not so concerned about the exposure piece, especially this summer because coaches weren't there. True, false, your experience? Go ahead and sit on the fence.
I'm sitting on the fence. I think it's both sides. I'm going to tell you what's really discouraging, and I'm sure you'll fist bump on this one. If you're playing for an organization that, when myself as a college coach, now again, I'm the enemy because I'm wearing the other uniform, but I walk over and talk to every play, a team we're going to play, and I want to get to know the coaches and I want to ask them about their players. And when I ask for a roster and you don't have one, that says an awful lot about why you're there. And that's again, I'm not damning anybody for, I know it happens. I've been places and ran out of lineup cards. It happens. But man, like, I think if you boiled down to the crux of why you got in your truck and you drove to go coach that game, to me, that comes back to, are we coaching for ourselves? Are we coaching for wins? Are we coaching for some trophy? Or are we really coaching to serve our players and highlight them and promote them? Again, recognition of what the opportunity is. The opportunity is to play for a really good team and promote these players and to be a liaison between the college coach, professional scout, and these players and their families. So if I'm playing for an organization and that happens multiple times, they don't have a lineup to give a college recruiter or a professional scout, I don't know if that's an organization I'd want to invest anymore in. Are they truly investing into you and promoting you? Because that's what we have to have. We can't – I really like number 12 for Elite Squad. I mean, number 12 is really good. You guys had 4 number 12s that game. So, like, I need to see a lineup, and then I can talk with the coach and say, now, which one is he? Is he pants up guy? Oh, he's the one that's 6'2". The other one's 5'11". I got it. Okay. You got to have something to come off of. So I saw both sides of it. I watched I'll tell you what, I watched an organization, and I won't throw them under the bus, but I tell you what, it wasn't about the kids. Let's just say that. It was about the dude in the third base coaching box. And for me to sit back on the rail and watch that, it's like majorly apparent. So then I know that as I continue to recruit, that's not an organization I'm going to lean on too hard, because I'm not going to get the right interpretation of who that kid was. I also watched one, and the coach was all about his players, and I watched it and I felt it, and they actually knocked us off one game, and I went, there's something different going on in that dugout in terms of how he's arranging these guys, how he's communicating with them, and it was all about the promotion of those guys. So I think you see both sides of it. Hate to keep sitting on you.
No, it's okay. I think people, they see both sides of it, and then they can go out there and they can say, okay, well, this is the side I want to be on. So
sure, no doubt.
This is what you should look for. For example, if you are in an organization that doesn't have lineup cards, that doesn't have a game changer account going, that doesn't have a free Twitter account going for you, that never puts their roster in the program, their roster's not on perfect game, then don't play for that organization. Flat out, don't play for that organization. They need to be better. Those are the most basic.
What are you paying for?
Those are the most basic pieces of exposure.
No doubt.
If they're not entering their lineup into a freaking database for 10 minutes, or they're not printing out their lineup card for coaches, you think they're actually calling coaches for you?
Exactly.
Right? Like, so that I agree is like, look at that. That's number one. How do we find a good organization? Go look. Can you find all their players? That would be the question.
Sure.
So you saw parents and fans in a different light, I'm guessing, this summer as well. What was your takeaway, whether good or bad, on that?
So I think it was a really good, like I mentioned earlier, it was a really good education on travel ball and understanding these organizations and maybe the trickle down effect of those teams, like what those names mean out in space is what I'm talking about. So like the random 16-year-old in Kentucky, where I'm from, they may not know who US Elite is, and they may not have ever played East Cobb, but they know who the Canes are. And it was really neat to see that in action. So one of the probably first 5 or 6 games I was a part of the group, we played Team Elite at East Cobb, and there's 600 people there. And I'm literally hitting fungos to our kids before we get going, and I'm looking around like, there are people on the hill. There are people in the bullpen. There's no seat, behind them. And I'm like, this is different, but everybody knew Team Elite versus the Canes was going to be one heck of a ball game. That was really neat because I just didn't understand the sphere of it in terms of the depth of understanding of the talent and the teams and the names and what that name means. It'd be kind of like, seeing a tournament and Oregon State and Vanderbilt match up. And everybody's like, hey, that's going to be a good game. And everybody kind of flocked to it. It's pretty neat. Parents I didn't get involved with as much on purpose. I didn't really want to be that Uncle Sheets friend of the parent. I got enough things I'm worried about and focused on. I never want to put myself in position to where my ear could be chewed on whatever. I was always there for the player. I was there to serve the player on a daily basis. So my relationship and investment of time was with the player. And that sparked a lot of really good conversations of draft or of adjustments or as they progress as a college player, those type of things. Parents are parents, Josh, as you very well know. Moms ask mom questions, and dads want to know if they can buy a game hat. Like that's how parents lay out, and that is true across all fronts. I think why I chose to stay, in essence, neutral in the whole thing, not only does that fit what we're talking about here, but I also never want to be in a place where that parent looked at performance or looked at playing or not playing, and they felt like I could be a conduit for them. That's not who I am. I'm loyal to the organization before I'm loyal to anybody else because they gave me the opportunity. And I stayed away from that. I also know that because the parent invested, right, that hit their checking account before it hit anybody else. I understand where they're coming from and what they're looking for and why they need that validation in a lot of ways. I purposely didn't even walk into that arena. I didn't want to be part of that.
Okay, 2 questions left for you.
Sure.
I've heard a lot of the good things. What is something that you walk away from this summer and you're like, I'm concerned about this part of travel baseball that I did not ever think of before?
I think one would be, and this is let me chew on that for a second, but one that is in the youth player, so it does encompass into travel baseball, is it's one that we're fighting with our own kids, and it's certainly one that youth coaches and high school coaches and travel coaches are fighting. You go 0 for 3, and you're really talented, but guess what? Sometimes you go 0 for 3. Like that's how our game works. And I had a lot of conversations, and it just showed me that these youth players at times, their default is only to mechanics. Now, you and I know exactly why that is. They have a hitting coach. And generally, most hitting coaches, and I'm not, again, damning any of them, but most, not all, not you, most talk in mechanics. They don't talk in game-to-game adjustments. They don't talk in pitch-to-pitch adjustments. They don't work on adjustability within a swing. They work on creating a really good-looking swing. So I watched a couple guys go 0 for 3, 0 for 4, and they'd grab me and say, hey, what'd you see wrong? Nothing. You're the best 16-year-old I've ever coached. You're going to be fine. And the next game, they hit 2 doubles off the wall. That was one that just really made me appreciate how we teach our guys and how literally, with our hitters, we do not talk mechanics. Everything is in external cues that keeps them out of the batter's box in terms of their brain, and it gets it out on the field. I think back to what you mentioned a minute ago, if I had to pin it on travel baseball, Josh, I'd probably say some of the ill intentions. Why are you doing it? What's the purpose behind your organization? Look, we want the best players because it helps grow our organization, no doubt, just like you do. But I think managing and navigating that conversation with the college coach, or the professional scout, I would like to see us, this is putting it on me, I'd like to see us, and I'd like to see more travel coaches in that world, take a more vested interest in the education of the college recruiting space. I know you've spent a lot of time doing this in your webinar. Like that's where I think, from the outsider's perspective, it's kind of like the baseball dad that never coached Little League, but he still thinks he knows a little bit, and he probably does. He's picked up on bits and pieces. But do you know as much as I do? A guy who's invested 17 years and ups and downs and no pay to pay, like you probably don't. Well, it's the same way when you get to, again, walking down this path of they think they know how recruiting goes, and they think they know how to navigate these conversations. But have they done it like you've done it for the past 20 years? They probably haven't. So they need to be educated. And sometimes it's they don't know they need to be educated. And sometimes we got to do it for them.
I'm going to sum that up for you, and you tell me if you're right, if I'm right or wrong. One of the concerning parts, or more concerning parts about the travel circuit or the summer circuit, is that people are running around like chickens with their heads cut off, spending money in places.
Right.
And they need to be more focused and educated on where should they be doing that, because not everybody out there is in it for the right reasons, and they could very well be giving their money away to the wrong people. Does that sum that up?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Good. I am paying attention. Last question. Hypothetically, let's say I am a college coach and I am coming to you and I say, Coach Sheets, you just spent the summer coaching travel baseball. What is the 1 or 2 lessons that I need to know from you about that experience?
I think you, number one, as a recruiter, I think you need to understand that it should be our opportunity, which is why I walk over before every game and meet the coach. It's our opportunity to evaluate these coaches. And with those coaches, I'm evaluating the organization. And here's why. If I know and I can feel and I meet the coach, and I hate to stand upon my place in Judgment Mountain, but that's an evaluator. Evaluator is making a judgment. And I'm saying, I don't feel the vibe that it's about the kids. It's about him. I don't feel the vibe that they're about development. It's almost like after a game, we actually sum up the game and we try to coach within those moments. And I try to spend my time coaching within the game. Some organizations don't do that. So I think as the recruiter, get to know these guys, but start evaluating organizations. Because I think if you get a kid from organization A, you're going to get a better ball player on your field when he shows up as an 18-year-old freshman than you might from another organization. The other piece is, and this is a blanket across all of it, and just this has helped me tremendously getting back into coaching, assume nothing. Don't assume when that 18-year-old shows up on your campus. And I know much of us know this anyway. Dude, we teach everything. I go back to teaching our guys how to put their uniform on, how we take basic leads from first base, basic rules on the bases. I mean, we assume nothing because, again, based on where they've played, those key points may not have been emphasized. So I can't just assume that, he should know that on a one-out read from second base, they should be aggressive and get off as far as you can. I've got to go back and reteach that to make sure, now that it's been retaught, now we can move forward. So those are 2 things I would think about from a college coach perspective.
I see that a lot too. When you see programs like you're involved with the Canes, I'm involved with Elite Squad,
right?
And some of these programs that we have talked about and haven't, like FTB or, I'm sorry to those teams, X team that are out there.
They're all still really good. Yeah.
Yeah. I see that a lot where like those kids we assume have the, I don't know how to say it. I want to say it the right way. We assume that they have the baseball smarts.
Yeah.
But in all actuality, they're usually the ones that have just the raw talent. And they get to you guys, like you said. And yeah. Well, Coach Sheets, this is interesting. I enjoyed talking to you this summer. We had just said not many people get to do what you did, where you really experienced both sides of it. You are definitely a fence sitter. I'm guessing the upcoming election is going to be very difficult for you. And
I need a third option.
You're the guy who writes your own name in, and you could walk away and say that you got to vote for president.
So 2020.
Hey man, good stuff. I appreciate it. Be well. Good luck. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate what you do, my man.